Are you looking for sauce ideas for pork or chicken or any sort of white meat that's a little bit dry and needs a little bit of a helping hand? Well, stick around for a unique sauce that has a touch of creaminess, a little bit of savoriness, and a tiny bit of sweetness. Welcome to the Sauce and Gravy channel. Today we're going to dive into a sauce for pork. Yes, a rum raisin savory sauce for pork. Buckle up, let's go! Alright, so let's begin. Start off with a saute pan over medium to medium-high heat. Add 1 tablespoon or 15 milliliters of olive oil and half of a tablespoon or 7 grams of butter. And while the butter is melting, it's a good time to grab a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and season those pork chops. I put a little bit of pepper on earlier, now I'm giving it a dash of salt. And yes, these pork chops, they're an integral part of making this rum raisin sauce. It's a good idea to make incisions on the sides of the pork chops. That way the pork chops will lay flat whenever you're sauteing them. Otherwise they can curl up and then the surface of those pork chops doesn't touch that saute pan. And whenever it doesn't touch that saute pan, then it doesn't sear in the flavor and it doesn't leave that fond on the bottom of the pan. And the goal here is to get a lot of that fond, or those bits and pieces and those chunks of that pork chop, to remain on the bottom of the saute pan. And that's because that fond, it's a rich, dynamic flavor, and it'll add really a super taste to this rum raisin sauce. And make sure that the oil in the pan is nice and hot before you put the pork chops in to saute them. But once they're in, saute each side for 2 to 3 minutes until they're nice and golden brown. And these particular pork chops, they're a little bit thick, so I'm going to finish them off and cook them the rest of the way through in the oven. However, you don't have to cook it in the oven. If you wanted to cook it on the saute pan to your taste, that's perfectly fine. After the pork chops have been cooked to your taste, take them out, let them rest, and while they rest, it's a perfect time to make a rum raisin sauce. So as you can see, by cooking this in the oven, it rendered a lot of fats and juices. We're not going to throw that out. I'm going to take it to the side, put it into a little bowl, and you'll see what happens to it in a little bit. Now it's time to deglaze the pan with some dark rum, half of a cup or 125 milliliters. Put the burner on medium to medium-high heat, and the pan itself, it's actually hot from being in the oven. While we deglaze, it's a perfect time to grab a flat-bottomed spatula and scrape all of those little bits and pieces, all of that fond, that flavor, try to incorporate it into the sauce. So this is the small bowl of the rendered fats and juices from the pork chops whenever they cooked in the oven. So we put it to the side, I didn't throw it away, and the reason why is because it's loaded with flavor. So I put this to the side so that we could get out all of the fat and grease out of the top. We don't want this in the sauce, we want to remove it. And this is just such a small amount, a fat separator is not going to really help us out, so you have to do it by hand. So use a spoon to skim the top to get as much of that grease out as possible. And don't worry, you're probably not going to get all the grease out, just get as much as possible and then pour it all right back into the saute pan with the rum and let it reduce down. And the liquid will be done reducing whenever you see well-defined bubbles and whenever you take that flat-bottom spatula and scrape it on the bottom of the pan and it leaves big trails. Once reduced, grab half of a cup of heavy cream, that's 125 milliliters, pour it on in. Next add 1/4 of a teaspoon of allspice. And then we'll add 1/4 of a cup or 40 grams of raisins. The saute pan, it's over medium heat, you'll want to bring this to a simmer. Make sure that everything's mixed in well together, and the good thing about using cream in order to thicken up the sauce is you really don't have to watch it, you don't have to stay on top of it. However, you will want to give it a few stirs occasionally just to make sure that it's all well mixed. Once the sauce starts to come to a simmer, it usually takes roughly about 3 to 5 minutes for it to be thickened up just right. And you'll know whenever it's done, whenever you see trails, whenever you stir, and whenever you take that spoon and run your finger down the back and it leaves a nice big line. At this point, taste it, adjust the seasoning if necessary, add a little bit of pepper, a dash of salt. So this rum raisin sauce, it is a savory sauce, so it's not a sweet rum raisin sauce. It does have a little bit of a touch of sweetness whenever you bite into those plump raisins, which is really great because it adds another flavor dimension of sweetness to any sort of white meat type dish like pork or chicken. And then take this off heat, and then for the final touch, we're going to add half of a tablespoon or 7 grams of butter. This will add to the creaminess, plus it'll add a little bit of a sheen and a nice gloss to the sauce. So that's it. While you're letting those pork chops rest, you're able to utilize your time making this delicious rum raisin sauce. Well, thanks for watching the Sauce and Gravy channel. I hope that you enjoyed the recipe. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section below. And don't forget to hit that like button, share the video with your friends, smash that subscribe button, and to remember, as always, to live, love, and make gravy.